The dinner rush had barely started, yet the air inside Marble and Elm already felt tense, like the calm before a storm. The chandeliers glowed softly, jazz music played from hidden speakers, and the scent of roasted garlic and butter filled the room. But beneath that warmth was something cold. A quiet kind of fear. Everyone knew why. It was Friday, the night Robert Hale, the billionaire who owned half the city, always came in. The staff whispered his name like a curse. "Remember last week?" Emma muttered beside Sophia, tying her apron. He yelled at Mark for pouring his wine too fast. Sophia forced a small smile. "Maybe he'll skip tonight." Emma snorted. "He never skips. He just destroys someone's night and leaves $1,000 tip to make it okay." Sophia laughed softly, but her heart wasn't in it. It was her first month at the restaurant. She'd seen difficult customers before, but Robert Hale was a different breed. When the clock struck 8, the room fell into that strange, nervous silence that came before his arrival. Even the manager, Mr. Carson, smoothed his tie twice and fixed his smile in the mirror. Then it happened. The heavy glass doors opened. Robert Hale stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, rain still glistening on his black coat. His presence filled the space instantly. People lowered their voices. Some even straightened their posture, as if gravity had shifted. He didn't look around. Didn't need to. He owned the attention in that room. His shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor as he walked to his table. Table 7, by the window, his usual spot. The reflection of city lights flickered across his face, making him look like a man carved from glass and shadow. Sophia took a slow breath and picked up the menu. "Wish me luck," she whispered. Emma gave her a look. "Luck won't save you. Just survive." Sophia walked toward him. Each step echoed in her ears. She could hear her own pulse. "Good evening, Mr. Hale," she said, voice steady but soft. He didn't look up. Just flicked his hand slightly, impatiently. "Coffee, black. And don't make it bitter this time." Sophia blinked. "Yes, sir." As she turned to leave, his voice cut through the air again. "Wait." Her spine straightened. "Sir." He looked up then, cold blue eyes, sharp enough to slice through words. "Who told you to pour my water before I asked?" Sophia froze. The glass pitcher was still in her hand, half full. I'm sorry, sir. I thought." "You thought wrong," he interrupted, his tone calm but cruel. "Next time, think less." The nearby tables went silent. Emma stopped mid-step. Even the manager looked away. Sophia's cheeks flushed hot, but she bit her lip and nodded. "Understood, sir." Robert went back to his phone like nothing happened. She turned away, her hands trembling. But something inside her burned, not from embarrassment, but anger. All this power, all this money, and no kindness. She placed the coffee on his table a few minutes later, the steam rising between them like a quiet wall. He didn't say thank you. Didn't even glance up. Just as she turned to leave again, the busboy, a nervous teen named Michael, tripped on a loose mat. The coffee tray he carried slipped from his hands, and hot liquid splashed across the edge of Robert's immaculate suit jacket. The sound of the cup hitting the table was like a gunshot. Robert stood slowly, his expression sharp as a blade. "Do you know," he said in a low, icy voice, "how much this suit costs?" Michael stammered. "Yes, sir, I didn't mean to." Robert stepped closer. "Then mean it next time." The boy's eyes filled with tears. The entire restaurant froze. Again. No one spoke. Not the waiters. Not the manager. Not even the diners. Sophia's heart pounded. She could feel the unfairness clawing at her chest. And before she could stop herself, she stepped forward. "Sir," she said firmly. He apologized. "It was an accident." Every eye turned to her. Robert's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me." Sophia met his gaze, unflinching. "You don't have to talk to him like that." A silence fell so deep you could hear the rain tapping against the windows. Robert stared at her for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth lifted. A smile. Cold. Curious. Dangerous. Interesting, he murmured. Very interesting. He dropped a few crisp bills on the table, enough to cover his untouched meal, and walked out into the rain. Sophia stood frozen, chest tight, eyes following him through the glass. Emma rushed to her side. Oh my God, Sophia. What did you just do? Sophia swallowed hard. I'm not sure. But deep down, she knew. Something had shifted. That single moment, that small act of courage, had just changed everything. The invitation, when Robert Hale returns, and Sophia learns that standing up to him was only the beginning. Thought balloon: if you were in Sophia's place that night, would you have spoken up, or stayed silent like everyone else? The tone stays emotional, visual, and personal. Every pause, silence, and glance matters. The next morning, Sophia barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Robert Hale's cold smile, that strange glint in his eyes before he left. Was she fired? Would he complain to the owner? Would she walk in today only to be told, "We're letting you go"? The restaurant was quiet when she arrived, the calm before the lunch rush. Mr. Carson, the manager, called her into his office the moment he saw her. "Sophia," he began, his voice serious. "I got a call from Mr. Hale this morning." Sophia's stomach dropped. Oh no. He raised a hand. Relax. He didn't complain. What? He requested you. For private service. Tonight. Sophia blinked. Requested me? After I? Mr. Carson shrugged helplessly. He said, and I quote, "I like people who don't scare easily." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sophia whispered, "Do I have to go?" Carson sighed. "You don't have to. But refusing a billionaire client isn't easy. Especially him." Sophia nodded slowly. "I'll go." That evening, a sleek black car pulled up outside her apartment. The driver held the door open silently. The city lights blurred past as they drove, tall glass towers, wet streets glimmering from the rain, the hum of power in every reflection. They stopped in front of a gated mansion perched above the river. The kind of place that didn't need guards, its silence was enough to intimidate. When the door opened, Robert Hale himself stood there. He wasn't wearing the same icy expression. His tone was calm, even polite. "You're punctual. I like that." Sophia tried to sound composed. "You asked for private service?" He motioned toward the dining room. "Dinner. Just us. I wanted to see if the woman who stood up to me was as fearless outside her uniform." His words hit her like a gust of wind. The table was set with silverware that looked like it belonged in a museum. Soft jazz played in the background. The air smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. For a while, they ate in silence. The ticking of a wall clock filled the gaps between breaths. Finally, Robert spoke. "You know, no one has ever spoken to me like that before." Sophia set down her fork. "Maybe that's the problem." He looked up, genuinely surprised. Then, a hint of amusement crossed his face. "You think I'm the problem?" "I think power makes people forget to listen." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Robert leaned back, studying her. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" He didn't answer. Just glanced toward a large painting on the wall, a woman with kind eyes, holding a small child. "My mother," he said quietly, almost to himself. Sophia felt something shift again, something human behind the steel. Then his phone rang. He checked the screen, his face hardening instantly. "Excuse me," he said, rising. "Business." But before he left the room, he turned back. "Don't leave yet. I have a question for you when I return." And then he was gone. Sophia sat there alone, the ticking clock louder than ever. What kind of man was he, really? Cruel or broken? Dangerous or just lonely? The door down the hall opened again, but the footsteps that approached weren't his. Next, the stranger in the hall, where Sophia discovers a truth that changes how she sees Robert forever. The air in the mansion felt colder when he left. Sophia sat at the table, fingers brushing the edge of her napkin. She could hear faint voices echoing from the corridor, one deep and firm, the other trembling. Then, a sharp slam. She hesitated, then stood. The hall stretched long and dim, lined with old paintings. The sound had come from the end, near a half-open door. "Hello," she called softly. No answer. Curiosity tugged harder. Sophia stepped closer, her shoes whispering on the marble floor. Through the crack in the door, she saw a teenage boy, maybe 16, sitting on the edge of a couch, head in his hands. His eyes were red, his expression broken. When he noticed her, he flinched. "Who are you?" "I'm a waitress," Sophia said gently. "I was serving dinner." He stared at her like she'd stepped out of another world. "He invited you here?" "Yes." The boy scoffed bitterly. "Of course he did. He probably wants to show you how perfect he is." Sophia frowned. "You're his son," the boy muttered. "At least on paper." That hit her like a wave. "He doesn't talk about you," she said quietly. "Yeah, well, he doesn't talk to me either." The boy, Ethan Hale, gave a hollow laugh. "He only cares about his image. That's all he's got left." Sophia hesitated. "What happened between you two?" Ethan looked toward the window, the city lights flickering in his reflection. "My mom died when I was 10. He buried himself in money. I buried myself in being invisible." The raw pain in his voice made Sophia's throat tighten. Before she could reply, a cold voice echoed from the doorway. "Ethan." Robert stood there, silent and still, but the fury in his eyes burned hotter than fire. "What are you doing here?" he said, voice low. Ethan rose, his jaw tight. "Maybe you should ask yourself that." Robert's stare could have frozen glass. "Go to your room." Ethan didn't move. "You think people can't see through your act? You scare everyone because you're scared yourself." "Enough." The shout was sharp enough to make Sophia flinch. Ethan stormed past him, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hall. Robert turned toward her slowly. The mask of control was back, but his hands trembled slightly. "I told you to stay in the dining room," he said quietly. Sophia swallowed hard. He was upset. "You don't understand," Robert interrupted. "Stay out of it." He turned away, his shoulders heavy with something that looked like guilt. Sophia watched him walk into the dark hallway, his reflection fading in the glass. And she realized something then. This man everyone feared wasn't made of stone. He was made of cracks held together by pride. But she also knew something else. Those cracks were about to break. Next, the dinner that changed everything, when Sophia pushes him to face his past, and pays the price. The rain hadn't stopped since that night. By the time Sophia returned to Marble and Elm 2 days later, the city outside felt washed clean, but her mind was anything but. She couldn't shake what she saw in Robert Hale's eyes that night. The anger, the pain, the guilt. Maybe the two weren't opposites after all. Maybe they lived side by side inside him. As she carried trays and smiled at customers, part of her kept wondering, why had he really invited her? Was it curiosity, loneliness, or something else he couldn't admit? She got her answer sooner than she expected. That evening, Mr. Carson called her over again. "Sophia," he said, his tone tight. "Mr. Hale reserved the entire restaurant for tonight." Her heart skipped. "The entire restaurant?" He nodded. "Private dinner. For two. He asked for you to serve." She hesitated. "Did he say why?" "No," Carson sighed. "Just said it's important." When the night came, the restaurant glowed like something out of a movie, candlelight flickering, soft strings playing in the background. The other tables stood empty, silent witnesses to something about to unfold. Robert Hale arrived exactly at 8. He looked different. No suit. No tie. Just a dark sweater, sleeves rolled up. The edges of his composure seemed softer, like he'd fought a war inside himself and was too tired to pretend. "Good evening," Sophia greeted. He nodded, his tone quieter this time. "Thank you for coming. Would you like your usual coffee?" He smiled faintly. "No. Just dinner. And company." They sat in silence for a while. The candles flickered between them, the flames dancing in the glass like tiny hearts beating too fast. Finally, Robert spoke. "I owe you an apology." Sophia blinked. "For what?" "For that night. For most nights, actually." He gave a small, self-mocking laugh. "I've spent so long trying to control everything that I forgot how to be human." His voice cracked a little. It was the first time she'd heard real emotion in it. Sophia leaned forward, her tone soft. "You're human when you choose to be, Robert." He looked up sharply, like no one had called him by his name in years. "Ethan told you things, didn't he?" Sophia hesitated. "He told me about your wife." The silence that followed was thick, painful. Robert's hand tightened around his glass. "She was the only person who ever saw the real me. When she died, I buried everything that reminded me of her, including my son. I thought shutting people out would stop the pain." Sophia's voice trembled. "But it only built walls you can't live behind forever." He nodded slowly. "You sound like her." Her breath caught. "Your wife." "She was a waitress too," he said quietly. "That's how we met." For a long moment, Sophia didn't know what to say. The image hit her hard, a younger, gentler Robert falling for someone kind, someone real. And then losing her. He continued, "When you stood up to me, it reminded me of who I used to be. Or maybe who I should have been all along." The music swelled softly in the background, a piano melody that felt like memories coming back to life. Then he said something that made her freeze. "I want you to come work for me." Sophia blinked. "What?" He leaned forward. "Not as a server. As my personal assistant. I need someone who can be honest with me. Someone who isn't afraid." She stared at him, the words echoing in her chest. Was this an opportunity? Or another test? "Robert," she began carefully, "I don't know if I can fix whatever's broken in you." He smiled sadly. "I'm not asking you to fix me, Sophia. Just don't give up on me yet." Her eyes softened. "I'll think about it." Outside, the rain had finally stopped. But the silence that followed wasn't peace, it was the quiet before something much bigger. Because what Sophia didn't know was that someone had been watching them through the restaurant's window. Next, the truth behind the billionaire, when the past comes crashing back, and Sophia learns why she was really chosen. The next morning, Sophia's phone buzzed before dawn. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello. Miss Sophia Carter?" "Yes. This is Detective Monroe, City PD. We'd like to speak with you regarding Mr. Robert Hale." Her heart froze. What happened? "Just come down to his residence. He's safe. But you need to hear this in person." The mansion looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, almost lonely. Rainwater still clung to the iron gates, glistening like tears. When Sophia walked inside, she saw Robert standing by the fireplace. His posture was straight, but his eyes looked tired. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "There's something you deserve to know." Detective Monroe stood nearby, flipping through photos. "Last night, someone took these," he explained, spreading them on the table. Sophia's stomach twisted. They were photos of her and Robert at the restaurant, laughing, talking. "They were sent anonymously to several business partners," Monroe continued, "along with claims that you're blackmailing him." Sophia's mouth dropped open. What? That's not true. Robert spoke firmly. I know. It's my son. Sophia froze. Ethan. Robert nodded slowly. He's angry. Hurt. He thinks you're replacing his mother, that I'm trying to erase her memory again. The words hit hard, slicing through the silence. He's just a boy, Sophia whispered. He doesn't understand. Robert's expression hardened. He's not a boy anymore. And I pushed him to this. He walked to the window, rain light spilling across his face. When my wife died, I told myself love was a weakness. That emotions were distractions. I built empires to hide from my own grief. But you. He turned to face her. You reminded me that courage isn't shouting orders. It's facing the people you've hurt. For the first time, Sophia saw him, not the billionaire, not the legend, but the man. Flawed. Regretful. Human. Robert, she said softly, it's not too late to fix things with him. He laughed bitterly. You really think he'll listen? Sophia stepped closer. Then make him see you're trying. That evening, Sophia stayed as Ethan arrived. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Ethan's jaw was tight, his voice sharp. You sent her after me too? Another person to make you look good. Stop, Robert said quietly. You think I don't see what I did to you? You're angry because I taught you how to be like me. And that's the worst thing a father can do. Ethan hesitated, just for a second. Robert continued, his voice trembling. Your mother would hate what I've become. But Sophia made me remember her. Made me remember that I used to be kind. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes, though he tried to hide them. She was the one who told me, Robert whispered. That power means nothing if you can't look people in the eye. The silence that followed was long, painful, healing. Then Ethan's voice cracked. I just wanted you to see me again. Robert stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and pulled his son into his arms. Sophia turned away, giving them space. Her throat burned. For the first time in years, the Hale mansion wasn't silent. It was alive, with something real. Hours later, as Sophia walked out into the night, Robert followed her to the door. Thank you, he said simply. She smiled faintly. For what? For reminding me that sometimes, the smallest act of courage can save more than one life. They stood there for a quiet moment, the sound of wind through the trees, the city lights flickering below. Then Robert said, I never got to ask, will you work with me? Sophia smiled, eyes glistening. I already did. And with that, she walked down the steps into the soft night rain. Free, proud, and stronger than ever. A month later, Marble and Elm buzzed again with laughter and light. Sophia still worked there, but she was different now. Not just a waitress, but a woman who'd faced down fear, and changed someone's life. And sometimes, when she passed a quiet man at table 7, she'd see him smile. A real one this time. Thought Balloon, what do you think? Was Sophia brave for standing up to him, or was it something more? Would you have done the same if it were you?